Hi, welcome to Swishing Mindsets. This is Anuradha, and today we are speaking to Gopika Kapoor and Moneisha Gandhi, both moms of neurodivergent young people, Veer Kapoor and Mihaan. They have launched Buddy Up, a friendship app for people with disabilities and their caregivers. While Gopika is a neurodiversity consultant and an author who also wrote the book Beyond the Blue, Love, Life, and Autism on her parenting experience, Monisha formerly ran an embroidery export company and volunteers at the Umeed Parent Resource Center. Both are advocates of diversity and inclusion. So, hi, Monisha and Gopika.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Let's start with Gopika. Since I've just finished reading your book, would you like to do an introduction for yourself and Monica
Sure,
and Buddy Up? Yeah.
sure. So I think I am sometimes known as Veer's mom. Um, so I actually am Mumbai based. I started out as a journalist, didn't know much about autism, and I think Veer introduced our entire family to that word and the condition and what it's like to live with it. Um, It's been a journey of about 16 years since he was diagnosed, and many ups, many downs, a lot more ups, I would have to say. And I worked for 10 years at Umi Child Development Center, which is the place where Veer was diagnosed, uh, because I felt a very strong sense of the privilege that I had when I used to take him there for therapy in terms of economic privilege, social privilege, and I really felt that I needed to give back in some way. When I quit Umeed, I decided to write this book because I've got a journalistic background and writing was the thing that came most easily to me. And at that time, I knew that there was no book in India about any parent's lived experience of autism. There were lots of resources that I found, which were from the US, from the UK, from Australia, but nothing had that specific Indian flavor to it. And I felt that it was time to write something like this. And I was also at the point in my journey when I could write about it. And so Beyond the Blue happened. And around that time, I think a little before that, our friend Monisha and my common friend, Dr. Vibha Krishnamurthy, who runs Umeed, she's the founder of Umeed. She had been telling me for a long time. She said, Veer should meet Mihaan and he should become friends with him. And Monisha had been looking for a friend for Mihaan. And so Vibha had said that you should meet Veer. And somehow it just never happened. It took us about a year and a half till we finally got the boys to meet. The first time they met was in Monisha's house. And we said we should have an activity because otherwise they won't know what to do with themselves. And so they baked a chocolate cake while Monisha and I sat and had tea. And I think it was that and maybe the next meeting where they baked some really awful tasting but beautiful looking rainbow crepes that took for them to become the best of friends. And since then, it's been a journey of lots of sleepovers, lots of music concerts, lots of dance parties. They've now started going to a place called Skill Shakti Community. It's a group where they learn life and employability skills. So their circle has grown. They have a social life which could rival ours. And we realized that. This is something which is very rare in the disability community, and also that everybody doesn't have a Vibha in their life who says you should meet so and so. And so we had been thinking about this for a long time. We started with the idea of a Facebook group and then figured that we should move to an app because it's much more accessible to people. Most people have a smartphone these days. And that is how the idea of Buddy Up was born.
Yeah, wonderful. And since I've just finished your book, I feel like I know Veer so well. When you say that, I'm like, oh, he likes baking. And when you say he went for a concert, I'm like, oh, what about the loud noise? But some noises, some loud noises he enjoys. Okay.
Yes, he does. He does. He's okay with loud mega watts of music blaring in his ears, but he cannot take the sound of balloons popping or any dog barking. So when he goes to Mihan's house, he makes sure he carries his headphones because Mihan's dog barks a lot. So
Yeah,
he
Manisha
can't
just
take that.
mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah.
A dog, yeah. So tell me, Monisha, how's it been for you? I mean, getting the boys to meet, them becoming friends, and then starting the app.
Yeah, so just Mihaan is exactly just a couple of months older than Veer. They're exactly the same age. He was diagnosed at birth. Was quite a shock for us. Had no understanding of Down syndrome. Again, it was exactly that same, the same kind of feelings that most parents with a sudden diagnosis go through. But I think we pretty quickly got over it and figured, okay, we need to do what we can to just give him the best life possible. I as a parent, always felt like it was, while of course there was a focus on therapy and speech therapy, occupational therapy, physiotherapy, all of that. I, as a parent, very consciously from a very young age, uh, really felt that socialization with all kinds of people was very, very important. So I remember even when Mihaan was at school, he went to a mainstream school where, because of his, speech lacking clarity, sometimes he would kind of not, the other kids may not understand him. Sometimes group conversations were too quick. So I remember literally trying to make those, individual connections with a lot of kids at school so that they would get that one-on-one time. So for me, a big focus was friendship, and socialization was a big focus for me as a parent, because I felt that was really important. Sometimes I would find a lot of other parents in the similar situation as me, spending all their time just, therapy after therapy after therapy. And then just there would be no time for like play dates and time in the, park with other kids. So I remember from a very young age, really, that was my focus. But as my son grew older, his classmates were all going to move on to college, university, and he was going to lose this cohort that he kind of had grown up with. And I was anticipating this time when he would suddenly find this sudden void in his life. And for a very social kid like Mihaan, that would have been really hard to stomach. So I actively, when he got to the teenage years, I started actively looking for friends for him. So I literally remember putting out posts on Facebook, random Facebook, groups, and does anybody have a, child who's this age, and stuff like that. But then I felt, it needed to be, I needed to sort of do this a little more systematically. So I reached out to Vibha, as Gopika said, and I said, Vibha, can you please, give me all the young people in his age group, and let me get in touch with their parents, and I will try to introduce Mihaan to them. So just I was thinking that, long term, he would need those long-term relationships. Plus, I also felt like with as kids are fine with other kids, but as adults, you need to have some very, solid shared experiences to build a long-term and very sustainable relationship. It's not like the kind of, friends who will meet you once in a while and then sort of go on with their own lives. This was going to be a friend. I was looking for a friendship which was going to be based on both of them coming to the table with the same amount of desire for this friendship as each other. So that's the kind of genuine friendship that I was looking for. And therefore, I started looking within the disability community, because that's where I felt like his biggest chance of finding such a relationship would be based on all of these things that I mentioned earlier. So Vibha introduced us, and the rest is history. The two of them just clicked. They, despite being very, very different personalities, Veer is very quiet, Mihaan talks non-stop. They somehow found a happy medium. They managed to entertain each other. They do silly stuff, and they do a lot of stuff together. They like doing activities. They like playing board games. They like, working out. They do fitness stuff together. They like dancing. So, they find lots of common grounds where they can spend endless amounts of time with each other. And, they've both learned from each other. In fact, what was really fantastic was that I was, initially like being a parent of someone with Down syndrome, I would look in the Down syndrome community. Gopika possibly looked in the autism community. But somehow, this cross-disability friendship has been quite amazing because they actually bring different things to the table. So Mihaan, for example, is very social. So if he kind of goes out and he'll initiate all the social plans. He'll be the first say, oh, weekend coming up, what should we do? And he will plan all of this stuff. I remember them going on a camp together, and I said, Mihaan, how are you going to he's pretty bad with fine motor skills. And I said, Mihaan, how are you going to zip up this wind cheater? And he said, we will do it. So that, and Mihaan, is a little more nervous about, say, crossing the road, for example, and he sees we do it and we travel by himself. So now he feels very motivated and inspired to follow in, Veer's footsteps. And Veer, likewise, I think has become way more talkative than what he used to be when I first met him. I remember he used to come and he used to sort of be smiling and passively participating, but now from the room we can hear sort of raucous laughter, and I don't know what they're talking about, but they're certainly having like a two-way conversation. They found their happy medium. So yeah, I think that's really when we realized how powerful their friendship was, we just felt like, this is such an important thing for people, anybody to have. Any person who's feeling isolated, why should they feel this way, right? I mean, but how do you find those friends? It's not easy to just locate somebody who will have these shared experiences. And we realized that while so many areas in the disability space have been focused on, like therapy and medical services and even jobs, the social space, really, there was nothing. So we just felt like this was something that was missing, and we felt it would be very a powerful thing for people to have another or a couple of friends in their life just for their own well-being. I think, people focus on therapy for well-being, but friendship is the best therapy, right? I mean, you have somebody to talk to, somebody to spend time with, that can be therapy in a way. So, yeah.
Yeah, and what you said, they're coming to the table with the same needs, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And we all have that friend, who
Yes.
gets us out of the house. Like
Yeah.
feeling lazy, but says, no, I'm making a plan and let's go here. So it's with everybody, we
Yeah.
have that.
Absolutely.
And what
Absolutely.
you said that, that across, challenges that, I would have also, my question was also that, initially that, that Veer has autism and Mihaan
Yeah.
Down syndrome. So,
Yeah.
does that matter really?
Doesn't. Gopika will just tell you. that.
I think for the longest time, Anuradha, they didn't even know that the other one had a disability.
That's beautiful.
Monisha, if you remember, I think it was Mihaan who asked, right? I mean, Mihaan asked Monisha that why does Veer talk so little or something like that. And Veer hadn't even asked me anything about Mihaan. And until I had to tell him, because Monisha had spoken to him, so I said, I'd better talk to Veer. So I said, I mean, Mihaan has a condition called Down syndrome. So it was like, okay.
Yeah.
They have another friend who types out what she wants to say, and that is something. And they're totally accepting. It makes zero difference to them. They just put on the music and dance.
I think it's more in our heads, probably, giving labels.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very sort of non-judgmental.
Yeah.
They're happy to just be in each other's company, and really that's really what's important to them. They're not competitive or judgy. Veer, Gopika talks about how they both ran the 10 kilometers at the marathon together, and Veer is like almost miles ahead of Mihaan. Mihaan is a very slow runner, but it's not like Mihaan will ever think, oh, Veer is so fast, or
There's
Veer
competition, nothing.
or Mihaan does something, then Veer is saying, oh, how come he did it? It's just really lovely, and they're just there for each other. It's very sweet. And they go to a boot camp together where they help out their exercise coach runs a children's boot camp, and some of the kids at the boot camp are quite young and they don't understand and they'll kind of tickle Veer, and Mihaan will get very protective, and he'll make sure that they don't, because he knows that Veer doesn't like this. Or if Veer comes to our house, Mihaan will run to the room and bring his headphones so that we can quickly put on the headphones before our dog, who's got this very loud bark, will start bothering Veer. So it's very sweet, and
Yeah, it's very
how
sweet.
they really kind of
And very uncomplicated. I think our neurotypical relationships have so many layers and are so nuanced and are so complicated in a way that when you look at their friendship, it's just so sweet. There's no, like Monisha said, there's no competition, there's no jealousy, there's no I want to be where he is.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that. It's just what it is.
Yeah,
And
actually, and it's natural, right? Because for adults like us or neurotypical people, then you'll have a list like, listen, I'm coming to your house, please take care of these things. But then for them, it just comes naturally to meet the person halfway. Your
Correct.
friend
Yeah.
is coming, so you just step up,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really nice, something to learn, to uncomplicate. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. So, Gopika, like I know Veer has a twin, Gayatri, right?
Yes.
So Monisha, does Mihaan also have siblings?
has a sibling, 2 years younger than also a sister. So they both have sisters, neurotypical sisters.
Okay.
Yeah. And part of, in fact, our my worry was that, as they grow older, I could just pack them off and send them to play dates together. But as they grow older, that doesn't happen anymore, right? I mean, so I would have to definitely be now, I couldn't just have Mihaan piggyback on Mira's social plans or vice versa. They have to now have their own individual group, people that they would
Right. They both need their space. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that for both of us, Gopika and me both, it was a concern that, as they grew older, their neurotypical sibling was going to go out, have friends, go to coffee, go to movies, go to like parties, go here, there, and they would just think like, why am I not having these experiences, right? I mean, like, what's wrong with
Exactly.
me? Kind of.
And
Why?
for me, because they're twins, when Gayatri, my daughter, was going to go to college, before she went to college, I would have sleepless nights wondering how they've been together since the womb.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? What is he going to do without her? Because she was literally his role model. He would look to her and say, okay, she's acting like this, she's behaving like this. I have to base my behavior on what she does. And I was so scared. It was a real worry for me. Ironically, my daughter goes to Ashoka University, which is in Sonipat, which is in the middle of Haryana. And she was talking to me one day and she said, oh, what's the plan for the weekend? And I said, oh, your brother's been going for a movie tonight. Tomorrow he's out for lunch. Then he's got a concert. And the after tomorrow there's a party. And she started laughing and she said, I'm sitting here in the middle of Haryana. I'm not going anywhere. And he's got these social plans. I can't believe it. I mean, she was thrilled to bits. But it was almost like, look at this. Look how the tables have turned. And that's such a wonderful thing and such an it's very, very rare. I mean, I remember when Veer was younger, especially for people who are autistic, who are not like, I mean, like Mihaan is hyper friendly and talks a lot and but people who are autistic are by nature what you would call socially awkward. They would not be able to find social interaction extremely difficult. It's a big challenge. And I would just wonder what is going to happen with him. How is he going to be able to negotiate in the world? Hearing of a group of friends and people who have discovered a friend like this was stuff I used to dream of. It was never in my wildest dreams did I think that my son would be able to have this kind of life. And I constantly keep touching wood that he does.
Yeah.
But that is why, because we looked and looked and looked, both Monisha and I looked individually for something like this, like Buddy Up, and we just did not find it.
Yeah.
And that's why we felt that other people should not have to struggle. Plus, it would be lovely if our own kids had widened their circle. We were chatting with somebody yesterday and said, oh, these kids meet up. Why don't you kind of chatting with a mom and said, why don't you get your your child to come and join this gang? And she said, yeah, I'd love to do that. So that's how it happens, right? Even with neurotypical people, you meet somebody and you say, oh, why don't, I've got some friends coming over, why don't you come over as well and meet them? That's the way socialization happens. That's the
Yeah.
way your social circles widen. And we wanted that. Why can't our kids have that as well?
It's just that, sometimes what happens very organically for neurotypical people
Yeah.
just does not happen as organically for people with disabilities, just because sometimes spaces are not accessible, or the situation is not conducive, or and just the numbers are smaller, right? I mean, neurotypical populations are much larger than neurodiverse
And
populations.
also coming across people, right?
Absolutely. So
Neurodivergent.
you meet
Yeah.
people, you just know who you know, right? You'll have your small
Yeah,
circle.
exactly.
How do you go beyond your circle unless there is a platform where other people who you may not have met naturally just through your word of mouth, how do you meet those people without a platform like this? So that was the idea for the platform. There could be somebody in my neighborhood that I had no idea about, but signed on to the platform, and I discovered that they were living
Yeah.
not too far
Yeah.
away. So that was really the idea for making an app like this.
Yeah. No, it's a wonderful initiative.
And rather, there's so much social stigma, about disability still in our country. I mean, Monisha and I might be shouting from the rooftops, being very proud and proclaiming that this is who our boys are. But there's still so much social stigma, and there are people who will still prefer not to take their children out. And so then where do these children go? And how do they learn to interact with other people?
Yeah.
So that becomes a big issue. And I think, like Monisha said, that when somebody has a lived experience of a condition, there is so much that's so much in common, and that makes it so much easier to be able to relate.
Yeah. Another thing, Monisha, what you said that, your child went to a regular school.
Yeah.
So I was just curious that, I mean, didn't he make friends there? That means it's difficult, right?
So, he did,
Yeah.
and he still has friends from that school.
No, I'm just asking because, you read so much on Facebook and social
Yes.
media that, my son was not invited for a birthday party, or he was left out of some game,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it
We were
happens.
really lucky. In my particular situation, we were really lucky. I think it was maybe we do hear those stories, of course. In my case, I think it was a function of the particular school, that it has a very inclusive philosophy. So that feeling of inclusiveness was fostered very early on in the other kids. So all of that was there, and he's still connected with some of his school. But the fact is that if the other kid, his other very close friend from BIS, goes to law school in another city. Now, Mihaan's trajectory is different from that other kid. He's your friends. You may have all kinds of friends, but who is going to be your everyday friend?
Yeah, and I guess those kids have, moved on from putting on the music and dancing.
Exactly.
Yeah, just having
Absolutely.
fun, simple
Yeah,
fun, right?
Correct. Correct. So those experiences, then the chance of you having that friend who is going to be your friend, who is going to be available to you every day through the week or through the month, not the friend that you meet when they have holidays or when they those are also great. I mean, I'm saying one should have all kinds of friends across, but who is going to be that person you can call, who will show up at your doorstep? And that is most likely to happen within the community of people with shared experiences.
Yeah, with equal enthusiasm, sure.
Absolutely, correct.
Yeah.
And through this whole process, I mean, Gopika and I realized that one is Mihaan and Veer having that, been life-changing for them, but we also realized it was life-changing for us, because tomorrow, if like I am suddenly have to travel or do something, I know I can just say, hey, can you just can we, Mihaan, come over? Or likewise, can we come and stay over for a few days? Like, we've just become each other's support systems. And I think caregivers also could really do with having those caregiver relationships in their life. And the app can be accessed by people with disability, but can also be accessed by caregivers. So caregivers can find other caregivers as well on the app.
Yeah, that is a huge support network that
you could
exactly.
You know, also sometimes what happens is that you're a newly diagnosed parent and you don't, the news has been told to you and you're so confused and lost. You don't know what your life will look like. You don't know how things will pan out. And you can connect with somebody, not necessarily for your child, but for yourself. And, so you connect with the parent of a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old and say, what's my life going to look like? Where did you go? Did your child go to school? Did this happen? Like, how did you manage? How did you deal with your extended family? What did you say to your friends? I mean, there's all these questions which what parents think of as stupid questions, because you go to see the therapist for 1 hour a week, and you don't really want to ask the therapist, and maybe the therapist doesn't have the answer to those questions. So only another parent can answer those questions, and it's great to have that connection with somebody who's walked that path before, gone through the journey, and will tell you that you know what, it's going to be okay. It's
Yeah,
going
and
to
I
be,
think
you're
Gopika,
going to have a good life.
your book also goes a long way in that because it's very honest. That's what I
Right.
like. You've written about all your fears and going through the 5 stages of grief, literally, denial, anger, bargaining, finally acceptance, and breaking down and having meltdowns yourself and trying to deal with the diagnosis. So it's very honest, really. And I guess, and now you said that you just saw your boy as somebody, who's, I mean, you were afraid for him. And now you see him as a fully functioning person and he's fun and you see all his great sides, right? So that's
Right.
been a journey and I'm sure it'll help other mothers.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the idea. The idea is that the more we go out there, and the more we can kind of get people to connect. I think for me personally, Mihaan had this super supportive school structure. I did not have that. We did not have that, and so for us, it was a bit of a struggle because in
Yeah.
terms of schooling, it was difficult. Finding that right fit, finding the right school, even within the right school, finding the social setup and the friends for him was really, really hard. So we did not have that kind of, super supportive, super inclusive setup. And so I really feel that if somebody can benefit from this by not having to go through that, even one person, I'll be happy. If they can find somebody in their neighborhood who they, or like somebody who they, who they can connect with in whatever way, it would really be
Online,
fantastic.
if you have somebody who you start chat with online, even if they don't live in
Absolutely.
your neighborhood, but you at the end of the day you want to like connect with someone who understands you, and you can, if you find that person, you can even have an online conversation with. Why not?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, a very deep human connection is very core to all of us.
Of course, yeah. Because you
We
as a
have,
family, you're struggling, right? So when you reach
yeah,
out to somebody outside your family, you get that objectivity and it's easier, I suppose.
Exactly.
and the thing is that, and with an app again like this, Mihaan and Veer were lucky that they clicked, right? I mean, it may
Yeah.
not have clicked. So you need to, like anybody else, it's not like you just put two people with disabilities together and they're going to like just, it's
And they're
going to
going
happen,
to,
right?
yeah.
You need to sometimes just meet a lot of people to find, some people may fulfill some needs, some people may fulfill other needs. You may have, you can, just widen your circle with different people that you connect with on different things. Somebody may be someone that you play a sport with, or you may
Yeah.
play, a board game with, and somebody else may be someone that you do something else with, or
Exactly, yeah.
they're all those
How it
possibilities.
is with all of us,
How
right?
it is
That's
with
how
all
it
of us,
is.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you just want
Yeah.
more choices. And
also there are so many young people on the app as well. We've seen that our maximum age group is 20 to 30. So they all want a circle of friends. They want people to hang out with. They really, really want that, to make those connections, because it can be very lonely. And so that's why it's for all ages.
Yeah, and I can see that, you're doing workshops, offline workshops, you're meeting people, schools, etc. You've been visiting schools, etc., to, spread the word and I guess form connections. So how has that been? How are you spreading the word really?
I think just meeting
Yeah.
as many organizations as possible, talking about the app, talking about people's, have concerns about, safety, security, like, so, and who is this app? Who has made this app? Like if somebody just gets a random forward in their WhatsApp, they're not going to necessarily trust it. But if they understand the intent behind, what the app was intended to do, and they maybe put a face to who created it, they would understand that, it's not just some random thing that has just popped up out of nowhere. It's created by parents who felt a need and had a lived experience and, wanted to solve for it. So I think that just goes a long way in reassuring people. And I think just people, the moment you get something in your something like a forward, you sometimes want to know more that you may not necessarily get by reading about it. So I think just talking about it just helps.
Also builds
And
trust because there's so many apps these days. that You don't trust
Exactly.
all of it.
And like Monisha was talking about intention, I think that when people see that we have built this app for the community, we have worked with the community, various disability communities, to be able to test the accessibility, to make sure that it's safe, to see what works for, because we've had focus groups who we've called and we've spoken to about it, we've tested the app. Before the app was even developed, we had a group saying, is this something that's going to work? Do you think it's important to have this? And then go on to say that, okay, is this something which, when we had the actual app, getting them to test it, what do you think about the look and feel? What do you think about the way it works? Does it work for you? I think when people see all that and they recognize that ultimately Monisha and I are two moms who are trying to make this work, it's been amazing in terms of the response. There are people who will just come and want to help us with so many things. There are people who have offered of their services. There are parents writing and saying, we want to help you. Please tell us how we can help you. Spread the word. And it's really been very, very positive. Our aim now, of course, it's a numbers game with the app. The more people on it, the more chances of a connection happening. And so what our aim right now is to make sure that the app gets out there and that the people who it's meant for get on the app and build those connections.
Yeah, I saw there's a long drop-down list. There's Fragile X syndrome, there's Tourette's, there's even LGBTQI, there's everything there. So tell me, when you held these focus groups, what came out of it? Any learnings that you could share? Anything that stands out? Yeah.
So many.
I think the groups really helped us. So many things got added. Like we just put in, okay, what do we think are possible interests? But things like LGBTQ.
Yeah, that was a big one.
A suggestion. Somebody said, people in the LGBTQ and who are are from that community and have a disability have no real way of meeting each other. So can we add that as an interest? So that really came out of one of the suggestions from one of the.
We have the ability to block users. So, we said, okay, we'll do this block thing so that if somebody's irritating someone, you can block them. But then we had somebody who's neurodivergent who said, sometimes in a fit of anger, I block somebody, but then I feel bad and I want to unblock them. So we said, okay, let's build in an unblock. So we put that bit in. And we are willing to constantly take feedback, and we've got somebody who's visually impaired who helped us with the whole accessibility in terms of the screen reader and the voice recognition kind of thing. So we worked on that with him, and he continues to help us and says, okay, this is how this should read. This is what is right. This is what is wrong. This is how the visually impaired community will perceive it. So constantly, it's been such a learning for us. I think our own neuroplasticity has been increased tremendously in the building of this app.
Yeah. It's been really a very steep learning curve for us, considering we have zero tech background. We've just learned new terminology. We've become conversant with high fancy sounding tech words that we had no idea about before we started on this journey. But it's been fun, and like anybody who understands apps will tell you, an app just putting it out there is only the first step. It's like a constant work in progress. So you put out the app. So now you've got it out. But then what are people saying? Are they saying that this is working? What more would they like to see on it? So an app is something, it's like a thing that keeps evolving based off what the people that are using it are wanting from it. So if someone is saying that, okay, this is great, but we really feel like this feature needs to be there, then, we listen to that. Obviously, slowly we'll get there. It can't all happen at once, but yes, we make a list of all the things that we feel like we'll get to at some point, and we keep working towards that.
What are some other features that that you're considering adding over time?
So, I think right now it's just a thing where people are meeting each other,
Connecting, yeah.
of meeting profiles and things, but there are a couple of different things that have been thrown up, and we're
Yeah, yeah.
one,
we're working on
like maybe like a community notice board where you can share
Right.
things, pieces of information. So there's something a little more dynamic happening on the chat. Some people have said, Gopika, anything else? Like what are we
Just also one of the things that we want to which we're working on and we want to add at some point of time, is that for a lot of people with disabilities, they say, hi, how are you? And then they get stuck. They don't how to take the conversation further. So to just create something which gives them prompts to help them, kind of
that
sort
could
of
be
little quick suggestions to
Yeah.
see how to take it further.
Yeah. And of course, accessibility, because accessibility is also something that is, you can always do it better. We couldn't start. I mean, somebody also told us that if you try to perfect everything, you will not get off the ground. So
We heard that from many people.
take the plunge, do, and then keep improving as you go along. But so accessibility right now is, is there. The accessibility features are there, but we could always do something more. So the next phase we could add more accessibility features. So that's definitely one of the things.
Of course, yeah. So tell me, how does it work? Like, you go on the app, I just downloaded it, and then it asks you to log in. And then, I saw that there are loads of interests, etc., that you can sign up on. And then how does it work? How do you connect? And then you meet up? What happens?
So the caregiver logs on and signs up for their child. So the child's profile is made. If the child is under 18, then you have to, you will click caregiver account. The account belongs to a caregiver. When you start off, you're asked whether the account belongs to a caregiver. You fill in your child's information, your child's disability, interest, gender, everything else. And then what happens is that the algorithm, based on your profile, throws up some suggestions for you. So you can look at those and buddy up with them, or you can do a search, which is on 5 criteria, which is the age. There's a minimum and maximum age. There is the distance from you. There is the disability, whether you're looking in a particular disability. There is interests. So you want someone to match your interests, and gender. So a lot of girls, parents, especially, and also a lot of women who are on the app might prefer to just make friends with other women. And so based on these 5 criteria, you can search. And then you go into the person's profiles. You've thrown up a couple of profiles, or a few profiles come up. You go into each profile, read about them, and if you feel you want to become friends with that person, you buddy up with them.
Right.
And then,
Then once you buddy up with someone, you can begin chatting in the app. So you can use the chat feature to get to know somebody in app without really sharing any personal details. So you can get to find out a bit more about them and have a lengthy chat. And if you then feel like you want to take, the person seems trustworthy, there's one more thing. There's like a video call feature in the chat that you can do to do a quick verification. Suppose you want to make sure that this person who you're chatting with, it's a nameless, faceless person, right? I mean, you don't know whether they may say I'm 18 years old, but they may be much older or maybe different gender. So you want to do a quick verification. You can say, hey, can we get on a video call? You can do a quick 1-minute verification to see who that person is. And then you can be reassured, okay, they are actually who they say they are.
Yeah. So do you have like a verification as well of the profiles?
We don't do our own
Hmm.
verification. We leave
Yeah.
that for the person to kind of do a video verification of who
Okay.
is
Okay.
who's
Hmm.
there. That, which is why we've had that feature
Yeah.
with the app.
Yeah. So there's no catfishing happening. So they can just check. Yeah.
They can just check.
Yeah.
And in terms of our sign up process, we do have like a 2-step verification, which means that it
Right.
can't be any bots and those fake accounts and all that,
Yeah.
that kind of
And
stuff.
we've also got very detailed safety guidelines, which we have outlined very clearly for interactions online. Should the person decide to take it offline, meet in a public place, if it's a child, the caregiver has to, of course, accompany them. In case the person, so you have to be 18 to sign on to the app. But in case people feel that there is somebody who's over the age of 18, but they feel that they're vulnerable, they feel that they may be taken advantage of, then we very strongly recommend that a responsible adult, whether it is a parent, a caregiver, a sibling, that person signs on to the app and manages and operates the app on behalf of the adult. So in any case, if you're below 18, you can't sign up. You can't for themselves.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Also,
Except
there's one more thing that I'll add is that if there is a parent who has a vulnerable adult ward who would like to use the app, but maybe they have an intellectual disability, and the parent is worried about they're over the age of 18, so technically they could use the app or could sign on. The parent then can sign on from their own phone and be an observer with using the same login details. So you could have the app installed on the parent's phone through which they can kind of observe. They wouldn't participate, obviously, they would leave that for
Yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah.
they can keep an eye on what's going on so that nothing worrisome is going on. They can
Yeah. I guess it's difficult to just let go of the child and let them be on their own because you're supposed to be
and in some cases that there may be some a genuine requirement for such a
yeah, of course, yeah.
Arrangement. For a lot of people with disabilities, they would be horrified at the thought of this parent being on it, in which case and there would be no reason for it to necessary, because they're able to take those calls on their own and they would not need such a thing. But there are certain populations that could benefit from an arrangement like this.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, like for me, what I can see is that, of course, like, adult persons with disability, they can connect, right, on their own.
Yes,
But
yes.
also parents, like, I remember reading in Gopika's book again that, and you were very social as a couple, you and your husband, but after the diagnosis, it was difficult for you to even just go out for a party, right? So I don't know, Monisha, if that was your case as well, but for this, and your son is very social, you said. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, in this case, through your app, people can make these social connections and get a support system, as you said.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, the many parents that I've met, so many young, like of younger kids, that sometimes somebody will refer to a friend Vibha would refer to us younger, I mean, not younger, but parents who are, newer parents in this whole Down syndrome space to us. And we've heard just such heartbreaking stories about how the relatives have don't want to be friends with them. The cousins are not wanting to, they don't want, the building kids don't want to play with their kid. They've kind of almost been shunned. So this is, I mean, as I said, Gopika earlier said, we are very privileged. We come from families where, they're luckily for us, are very open-minded, very accepting, and not just accepting, but embracing of our boys. It's not the case for everybody. So sometimes you may need to find those social connects beyond who you already know, if they've been often enough to shun you, then you definitely need to go elsewhere to find that, right? I mean, it's very important
Of
to
course.
have.
Also, what often happens is with kids, specifically kids on the spectrum, kids, autistic kids, is because some of them may have speech issues in terms of they may not be speaking yet, or they may be non-speaking. They again, the communication becomes difficult, and so the family very often blames the parents, particularly the mother. It becomes a very socially isolating condition, and there is I feel that the stigma associated with it is, like what I said, very, very high. There's a lot of social stigma, and there are also, I think, because we live in India, which is a country with high superstition and lots of belief on religion, and I mean, living in a metro is a very different situation, but when you go into other parts of the country, there are so many other reasons attributed to the disability. And that makes it much tougher for parents. And so we're hoping that something like this, when you reach out to another parent of a child who has a disability, it's almost like we found somebody who you can relate to on so many levels. And so we're hoping that those connections get fostered as well.
I was also, I was talking about being, having very fantastic family support and very wonderfully wonderful friends and family that fully embraced our child when we first got the diagnosis. They said, there was no issue on that front, but yet I remember, for me personally, the biggest time that I actually could sort of breathe easy was after meeting a parent of an older, like maybe Mihaan was just a couple of months old, and I met a 12 or 13-year-old child with Down syndrome who was leading a lovely life, and I spoke to her mom, who was also very positive, and then I could literally breathe easy after speaking to her. So no matter what anybody said, that single, those few meetings, I think, were the ones that really kind of changed the way I felt about how life was going to be. Just seeing that, that it was going to be okay, and there were these families who seemed to be fine, and I just felt like, then I'm glad that we as parents have been able to be that parent for other people,
Of course, yeah.
So
just one thing I want to ask, that, we're talking about creating a space for neurodivergent individuals and their parents. But, what about neurotypical people? We also have to step up, right? Because, you've spoken about stimming. That was a new word that I came across, that, self-soothing, movements to self-soothe. So could you explain that a bit, Gopika?
Stimming. So stimming is basically something which, so I should tell you that we all stim. Okay. So
Of
when
course.
we are nervous, we kind of wring our hands like this. When we pace up and down. When we are very excited, we might just clap our hands or kind of like, squeeze our fists like this, or jump up and down in excitement. The thing is that we do it in ways which might be considered more socially appropriate, in a sense. Also, we reach that stage of from extreme high or anxiety to a state of equilibrium relatively quickly. For somebody who has any kind of neurodivergent condition, there might be a bigger gap between a state of hyper arousal or hypo arousal and that state of equilibrium. And so they might take a little longer, or they might need more to get there. So this could be when they are excited. It could be when they are very anxious. Anxiety is often the case. It could be when they're very happy. It could be when they don't know what to do and communicate. So stimming is a response. It's sensory stimulation to any kind of response. So I'll give you an example of what Veer does. Okay. When he hears a dog barking and he's become much easier, he would squeeze his hands and grind his teeth and rock back and forth. Now he just kind of presses his hands together. There are children who will, because for him that is his response. There are other children, so you want to, again, responses can be avoidance responses and seeking responses. Sorry, I'm trying to squeeze a lot of OT into this, but I'll try and explain it as simply as possible. So some children and some people might seek pressure, in which case you will find 15, 16, 17-year-olds who will come and hug other people. Okay. And that if they've not been taught that, okay, this is not what you do, you can seek the response in other ways. Not necessarily because they're feeling great love, but because they want that pressure of that, being pressed against somebody. There are some people who will shriek if a particular shirt is put on them. So you will remember in the book, I have talked about the t-shirt.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you give them all away. Yeah.
There are people who have any kind of responses who, like, Veer still cannot stand balloons popping and dogs barking. He still cannot stand that. He gets
But the
very
t-shirt example was very nice, it was because you didn't realize that he's scared, because when it goes over his head, he can't see. Right?
Yeah. The minute I remember very clearly, I took all that whole pile of t-shirts and I literally gave them away because I said, I do not want any t-shirts in the house. Because I was so, and because I did not understand, I was so impatient with him and I was beating myself up about this.
Yeah.
So I just did not want any t-shirts in the house after that. But the thing is that, again, like autism or any other kind of neurodivergent condition is a spectrum. And so how one individual reacts to something may be very, very different from how other people react to it. So, for example, you might find some kids who go and, there's a Ganpati Pandal or a birthday party or something happening and there's a speaker and there's booming music. You'll find one child sitting at one corner right away, putting their hands on their ears because even so far away, the music is too much. And you'll find one child going and touching that speaker because they like the vibration of it.
Yeah.
So it's all a spectrum. But stimming is basically something which people read. It's simple ways to reach a state of equilibrium and respond to sensory input.
Monisha, do you want to add to that? And I just would like to know how one should respond when you see that, because of course you don't look at it, oh, that's odd behavior, so, you don't shun that behavior or laugh at it, so how should somebody with neurotypical react?
I think if somebody neurotypical reacting to a stim, so a stim does look by typical standards, it does look odd, right?
Yeah.
And the first thing to recognize is that the child is not making the noise or jumping up and down or shrieking or whatever because they're having a tantrum.
Yeah.
Or that the parent is being a bad parent. Because typically what would happen is that a neurotypical person would look and the first reaction would be, wow, what a brat. Right?
Yeah.
That's the first thing. That would be like, why is this child being such a brat? Why is the parent not able to control the child? And so to maybe just give the person the benefit of the doubt and also to give them some space because, generally what happens is if somebody's shrieking like this or something, people might crowd around and say, what's happening to your child? Don't do this. We are very open with our suggestions and say, give the child a chocolate or take the child outside. And why do you bring your child to places like this? So there are lots of comments which pass. Just don't do that. You could always ask somebody if they need help. If they do, they will ask you. If they do, or you could just, or if they say, no, just give me some time and that's fine. But again, that child is when there is some sort of extreme reaction, a child is having a meltdown, they're not doing it for fun.
Yeah.
It's hurting them
just
more
awareness, awareness will just go a long way.
Yeah.
I think most people react because they don't know any better, right? They just they just think that, oh, like, if someone's behaving in a way that is inappropriate in a situation, they may think, oh, that there's intent on the part of the person that is behaving in that way. And the thought or the the idea that this could just be something that this person is unable to control
Yeah.
would not even have crossed their minds, right? Which is why it's so important, this kind of educating of young kids from a very early age to understand that there are all kinds of ways of being, and to then understand that somebody is not coming at it from a place of, being disruptive, or they're really unable to do anything about this behavior, and to just have that acceptance and that empathy for the person. That person is struggling with something and therefore doing this. I think that building of empathy needs to happen very early on in populations, to then as you grow older, you maybe will not like bat an eyelid, you will not
Right.
stay, make that person or that family more uncomfortable. Having said that, there's also, a balance between, if that person's stimming is really bothering me and making me very anxious, then, you have every right to kind of remove yourself from the situation.
Yeah.
I think you have to balance the needs of everybody in this equation, but just do it respectfully, do it kindly. And I think, I think that it's really, I think there's just, considering that it is now, we just know so much more about these things. I think, education needs to happen from a much younger age, to make people aware of these types of situations, and just be kinder to the people that are dealing with some of these things.
Yeah, and I think we need more inclusive spaces, where we're exposed to such behavior.
Correct.
Because often, you never see it. So when you see it, you feel, oh, there's something, what's wrong with that person? That person's being a brat, or,
Correct.
out of control or something
I
like
mean, even my own son, and as I said, he was in a regular kind of a mainstream classroom, and I would have, kids come up to me and said, he would have this sort of thing, like when he was young, he would do he would like do, make these noises, and some kids would come and ask me from a very young age, and I said I would explain it to them in whatever language I found appropriate for that age group at that stage, or the school teachers would have appropriate language to explain these things. And those kids then after that, when they have a reason and they understand it, they don't even bat an eyelid. They just have, okay, that's him, that's how he operates, and there's just not a big deal anymore.
Yeah, and what you said about Veer and Mihal's friendship, they don't even question it, right? It's just how the other person is. It's not even a quirk, yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the highest level of empathy, really. And friendship, yeah, and friendship. So, yeah, thank you so much. Would you like to add anything?
Anything else? Have we not covered everything?
So just Buddy Up is available in English and Hindi, both languages. People can download it for free. That they should just start, register, log on, and just start finding connections for themselves.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for joining, and all the best for Buddy Up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.